Hi, I'm Kelly Whalen. Happy Wednesday. This is Petey, and I am at Petey's house today in La Mesa, California, and we are going to share some Wednesday wisdom with you. So there's so many different topics that I want to talk about, but I chose one, and it's the topic of making assumptions. When we make assumptions, one, we're almost always wrong because we don't have the full story, and then two, we suffer as a result of the stories that we tell ourselves. And if you are familiar with the book, The Four Agreements, this would be the third agreement: make no assumptions. And there's a story of a man and his two children, and they're on the subway, and the two kids are just going wild, and they're yelling and they're running around, and this man is paying no attention to his two children, and all of the other people on the subway car are getting really annoyed because these kids are just being crazy. And so someone finally speaks up and says, "Hey sir, can you control your children?" And he looks up and he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, my wife passed away. We just came from the funeral. They've been sitting for hours, and they're just getting all of their energy out, and I'm really sorry." And so as soon as everyone had the full story, their whole tune changed, and they found their compassion, and they started interacting with the kids and playing with them. And that's almost always the case of when you have the full story, you find that there is a lot more compassion and empathy than when we create these stories in our mind of what people are doing or what their intentions are. And I know that I've done this on the freeway before, where if someone cuts me off, I end up like punishing them, and I will tailgate them, and then it's exerting a lot of my energy, and I feel really riled up, and it's just like a terrible chain reaction. But what if we could assume, if we're going to assume, why do we always assume to the negative? What if we could assume that the person that cuts you off is actually racing to get to the hospital because their wife is in labor, or somebody's sick at home and they need to get there? That's just as likely as the assumption that they're just jerks, and we are so inclined to always go to the negative first. But I say, if we're going to assume, let's assume the positive. And it just, like, even in the thought of that, like, can you imagine yourself thinking that, okay, the next time someone cuts me off, I'm gonna let it go and assume that they're in a bigger hurry than I am, and there's something that's really important that they need to get to. Like, as soon as you think that, there's such a peace about that, versus the alternative, which is, I'm going to punish that guy and chase him, and that's like where road rage comes from. Is road rage is just based on stories that aren't true, and it's like, it's a lot of suffering that doesn't need to happen if we can just like tone it down and go to the positive side of things, rather than making these assumptions that, do you ever notice, like, nobody assumes good things? Like, we're always assuming someone is like evil, or someone's out to get us, or someone's actions mean something, and most of the time they don't. Most of the time it's really, if that person didn't call you, maybe they forgot to call you, maybe their phone broke, like, that's just as likely as they intentionally didn't call you. So these are I guess the lessons that I want to impart on you today. So the next time you are feeling like you are suffering because of some kind of story that you're telling, remind yourself that, do you have all of the facts about what's happening? And if you don't, then let it go, and just either ask more questions so you can get the full story, or go to the positive and assume that the person is coming from a benevolent place rather than a malevolent place. So that is your Wednesday Wisdom number 16. It's here on Facebook, and it is also on YouTube if you want to check out the previous videos, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Bye.